Iryna, welcome to Realistic Happiness Podcast, and we're recording in the new studio today.
Amazing. I love the vibes, very soft tones, very good feeling. I feel very welcome here. So thank you.
It's a good mood setter for the topic we're going to speak about, which is stress and
Yes.
handling stress.
Yes. There you go.
Why does stress feel worse now than ever before?
Mhm. That's a good question. I believe it's because there is so much noise around. We are so overstimulated and there is so much information around us that we don't know anymore where to focus on, who to refer to, where to start. If you look at how much information we receive in a day, it's 100,000 words a day, which means reading a book Hobbit or Harry Potter every day. And so, in all of that noise, how do you know where are you going to go to ask for help or what's going to work for you? You don't. It's just too much information and stimulation around us.
And it's gotten worse during the years, right? This is the worst it's
Yeah.
ever been, essentially.
Yeah. I think they say that compared to 10 years ago, we receive 5 times more information and then we start getting lost in it and we're no longer aware where to start.
And it just feels impossible,
Yeah.
especially in 2025, to
Yeah.
dilute the noise
Yeah.
or just narrow your focus, because you need to keep up with what your friends are doing, with society, with how things are changing. I mean, we have AI, technology, it's evolving. It feels like every single week. It feels like if we don't keep up with this fast life, we're left behind. So it feels impossible to go back to the stress levels that we had before.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes it just takes a little bit of courage to leave your phone at home or leave your phone offline and go for a walk, clear your mind, and know exactly what you feel and what you need. When I say turn off your phone and leave it at home, you probably have a mini panic attack like, what do you mean? I don't know what's going to happen then. But that's how people lived 20 years ago. And I believe, in a sense, they were happier not being always on, right? So,
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I pulled a face when you said that, because with how society is and uncertainty, you do want to be reassured that you have a device like a phone on you that can essentially protect you if anything is to happen, or if you get lost, you have Google Maps. So it's just having that extra layer of reassurance whilst you're going out for a walk, or if you go out for a few hours without it. But I think also part of your identity is in your pocket, right? Like, if we don't document going to the gym or going for a walk or having a coffee or having a nice lunch, then what did we do that day?
absolutely. We're in this society of always achieving and getting things done, and the phone helps us in that. But I say we are human beings, we are not human doings. And sometimes we live as compulsive thinkers and human doings, trying to achieve as many things as possible to feel good about us. But actually, feeling good is in a state of being with yourself, with whatever you have done today, whether a lot or not, going in depth of every experience and living the moment, so that human being experience to the core, to the depth of it, is really the definition of happiness and not missing anything around you.
We've just made life so complicated. And like you touched on before, there's so much noise. There's advice about stress on TikTok, especially on YouTube, on LinkedIn, right? On Facebook, even. So, why do people still struggle with stress, even though there's so much information about it out there?
Yeah. I believe it's because people are bombarded with information. There are so many experts that you don't know who to refer to. And there are so many quick fixes that you hope work, but you try it once. There is no consistency. There is no real goal or motivation, and it doesn't work because, what works in mental health and well-being is taking consistent steps in the right direction, putting all the pieces of the puzzle together, which involves, your body, your mind, your nutrition, your lifestyle, the how of every day. And that's what brings you in the right direction, not doing one time off breathing exercise or, somatic exercise, a word that's very popular now, and hoping it's going to work. No, that's just a myth, really.
Oh my gosh, the semantic exercise, guilty. Cold showers, guilty. Breath work, guilty. I have this like optimal morning routine, Iryna, that I try and be consistent with. But I've noticed even if I do everything right, whether it's a cold shower first thing, matcha, to L-theanine to kind of stabilize my mood and my energy, eat no sugar, whatever, go for a long walk, exercise. Even if I do everything right, which is all these anti-stressors, if my day is chaotic, if there's no structure, if there's too much going on in the day, too many meetings, too much to focus on, too many activities, too many distractions, it goes to shit, right? Because you can try and do all these mini hacks and everything. It can help. It can optimize for the beginning, but if the rest of your day is just long, chaotic, no structure, unmanageable, too busy, then you will be stressed and you will hit the pillow in the night and you think, oh, there you go, now I'm overthinking. Now I can't sleep.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the term strategic slowness. So you take time to do everything well. You plan a full hour instead of 15 minutes that are not realistic to do it well and to really enjoy what you do. So taking time to do things well, not scratch the surface, but go in depth in whatever you are doing, that's one. Number two is focusing on quality than quantity. I always remind myself, if you have more than 3 priorities, you don't have priorities at all. And we all deal with a 10 to 20 to-do list, and we never get it done. We feel bad about ourselves, and we go to bed dissatisfied and feeling like, no, I'm not a good human being because I haven't achieved that. But the truth is, it's unrealistic to do more than 3 things a day if you want to do them well and enjoy what you do.
Wow. 3 things, only 3, but do them well and put effort into it and quality.
Absolutely. It's our brain can process only 3 related things. So not only 3 things, but 3 related things at the same time. And as soon as you add one more, neuroscience says 3 is a charm, 4 is an alarm. So you don't want to have an alarm in your brain. You really want to stick to those 3 if they are related. If they are not, might be overkill again.
So by unrelated, do you mean, for example, one of those big tasks is for me to go to the gym, and then another one is to start building my website, and then another one is to call 3 clients. Is that too unrelated, or because they're still big goals for me that day? Does that relate somehow, or do they have to be consistent?
So, what you just described is a combination of physical activity, which is a different program for your brain and your body, and mental activities. I am talking about 3 related mental activities.
Right.
Since one of them is a physical activity, it's actually switching off your mental activity program, and it's great. It's turning on, your body experience and helping you recharge and then go back to those 2 mental activities.
Right.
So no more than 3 mental activities in a day. That's what I mean.
Wow. And can you imagine with like a part-time or a full-time job, having 3 mental activities and then going home and having 3 extra mental activities, whether you're a parent, a dog parent, or you live by yourself or you have a spouse or whatever it is, right? You need to do so many things in your personal life. So that's like 6 things. And you have to focus in the evening and in the day. It already sounds like too much, but when you have like a bird's eye view, it doesn't sound like a lot of things. 3 things at work or 3 things in your personal life.
Absolutely. And, I say you cannot be good at everything. You have to choose your battles. And I am a mom of 2 babies, a 2-year-old and a 6-month-old baby. And I have to pick my battles. I define for myself almost every day, well, am I today going to be an amazing, brilliant trainer and a coach? I may be a good enough mom. Or am I going to be today a brilliant mom and okay coach? You can't have everything. Something has to go. You have to be sometimes good enough and stop at that, not to overload yourself with expectations, perfectionism, and stress.
I think that was really important for you to address and say, because you would feel bad if you're not like the perfect mom and also the perfect colleague and the perfect boss and the perfect wife or spouse. Like there's just this level of or sense of perfection in everything that you do. And so you have to kind of perform almost, right? Like, because if you're not feeling that great and you're not motivated and you're stressed, how can you be the best in every area of your life? And because we're so switched on all the time and also social media, etc., but also have to be present for our kids or our dogs or cats or our friends, there's just this constant pressure. So I can imagine that, that was really validating for people listening or watching that, all right, thank God Iryna said that we don't have to be always perfect with everything, because that's just impossible. It sounds impossible.
Absolutely. Pick your battles. And to your point of social media, I've read a study where they say every time we go on Instagram or Facebook and spend some time there, we have a lower self-confidence afterwards. It negatively affects our self-confidence because everybody seems to be doing a better job, living a better life. So just be aware, if you are scrolling there, you're probably not boosting your confidence. It slowly goes down. You close Instagram and you don't feel so great about yourself. That's very normal because there's just that picture perfect, place that doesn't exist.
Yeah, it's just your highlight reel.
Yeah.
It's your holidays. It's when you're happy and or faking a smile and having a group photo of your friends or your family. It's all for show.
Yeah.
And it's very, very harmful. I think even when I go into Instagram and I see like, oh, I have a new follower or I got a few likes on my picture, it doesn't stop there. You kind of look for more. So then I go on the For You page and I see all these celebrities and all of these things. It's super harmful because you are thinking like, oh, I did feel good for a second opening the app. And then I started scrolling and I started discovering. And you kind of go off and you're like, what now? Like you want to try and keep that dopamine kind of up, but real life is not like that.
No, I mean, people on Instagram can make you and then they can break you. So if you're very dependent on what they say versus what you really feel or your goals of being on Instagram, and be aware of that and keep some distance from, their admiration, you'll be fine. But if you're really dependent on how people react to you, one day you're up for a very bad surprise, because from, being a hero, you can easily become a zero on Instagram. And that's just the rules of that game.
Yeah. And another one is TikTok. So when I look for advice for specific things or like recommendations, I will check several videos. I won't check just one. I like to fact check, but they all seem to be different. So if I'm looking for something about stress handling, there will be something about cold exposure. There will be something about breath work. There will be something about the 1, 2, 3, 4 rule before you react to something, right? And it seems like such different advice, and it seems way too simple to handle something as crazy as stress, especially because it's like hormonal thing, right? Stress is like it feels like adrenaline
Mm,
almost when you're dealing with stress.
Absolutely. I've been just watching on Netflix Belle Gibson. Highly recommend that, movie and as well documentary. And that's exactly what it is about. It's not about, that magic pill that, something that you take, it all works out. You really need to look at, what the science says about it, what the doctors would recommend to you, what real experts, therapists, psychologists could help you with, and as well other experts that learned about mindfulness, emotional intelligence, food, but it all has to come together as pieces of the puzzle and not just, one thing that you're going to focus on.
So what does science say about stress?
Well, the science does say that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's going to do to you what you believe, it should do to you. So if you say stress is going to, kill me or negatively affect this or that, you're going to program yourself for that happening in a couple of years. These are not my words, these are the words of Kelly McGonigal, who has a PhD in stress management and has a really nice TED talk about it. So be careful what you believe about stress. If you say stress is neither good or bad, but I'm going to make my own definition of stress, like stress will remind me about my body needs, stress will help me to notice when it's too much. Stress shows me that I really care about this and it's important for me, so I shouldn't feel guilty or judge myself for this. And stress is going to challenge me to be better, then we are going to shape, that outcome of stress. So stress can be good. When we look at adrenaline side of it, it's eustress. It's when it gives us energy to move, motivation to get better. And then we have bad stress. It's when you add to adrenaline cortisol hormone, and it literally dries out your body. Imagine that you are a beautiful little grape, like a grape growing in Sicily, and adrenaline is going to make you nice and juicy. But when you add cortisol to it, it's going to dry you out like a raisin. And you don't want that to happen because cortisol, it stops your immune system, it negatively affects your sleep, your digestive system, your analytical thinking, your hormonal balance. And it's really important to know when to stop and when to look into taking a time out, doing a self-care, doing what your body is asking you to do, not to go from good stress, eustress, adrenaline, to bad stress, distress, with cortisol and dry out like a raisin.
Wow. And how can is there a way that we can assess within ourselves if we're going through bad stress or good stress? Because, for example, when I'm like bad stressed, I don't know if anyone else gets this, but I almost feel like I don't belong in my body. Maybe this sounds really odd. Like I'm tingling. Like I'm bubbling up kind of thing. And it feels like it's taking over my body. Whilst with adrenaline, if I'm thinking like, oh, I'm crossing the road and there's a car coming very close to me and I run across the road, that I feel like that's adrenaline. And then when a colleague keeps pinging me and like bothering me, even though I'm on do not disturb, and I'm like, oh, that's when I get this bubbling kind of feeling. Maybe I'm the only one, but is that how you can kind of assess?
I agree. Our body is the place of all the solutions and as well red flags when we know this is going too far. So it's almost like you feel that you've reached a peak and any step forward is going to take it into that cortisol space and will make you feel overwhelmed. So we need to learn to listen to our body and notice those first signals and red flags and trust them and act from them. The problem is that we don't act on what we feel. We brush it away. and we get busy, we get distracted. But our body is crying and through stress, trying to show us, hey, look at me, take care of me. I am trying to show you that I need now something, maybe food, maybe a break, maybe talking to someone that feels good, maybe just a nap or a good night's sleep. And we decide to not listen to it, disconnect from it, and then eventually we are breaking down because we haven't listened to something in our body. Yeah.
That's when you kind of go into burnout stage or
Exactly.
a crisis,
Yeah.
a meltdown. Like your body really screams, doesn't it?
Yeah. And 45% of people who have burnout are not aware of it. They are resisting it until the last moment when they wake up in bed and they cannot get out of bed and they say, no, this is not about me. This is not me. This happens to others. Lazy people, people who don't want to go to work, but actually it's us, or it's those people who haven't listened to their body that screamed for probably 3 to 6 months in different red flags and symptoms, continuously getting sick, feeling negative, isolated, not feeling productive anymore, and we've just ignored it. And then one day we wake up and the body says no.
Ignoring it does seem like the easy way, I think, especially if you are in a culture where, hard work is praised. For example, like in the US, I think burnout is like everyone's kind of living with it, but they just work 10-hour, 12-hour days. I mean, me and Jamie have experienced it as well, where we don't really have the funds to like hire extra people in the team. So we've had to do everything, ourselves. And yeah, like we just kind of push through with it because that's the only way we can get shit done, right? So let's take me and Jamie then as an example, if people can relate. How can you put boundaries with yourself essentially with stress, because it feels like it's impossible?
That's a good question. First of all, you want to start with your body awareness, feeling what you need and acting on it. So recapping on my previous point. The second thing is, what comes to my mind is positive psychology comes in play, because you can think yourself to unhappiness, depression, burnout, but you can also think yourself to, feeling good and prioritizing the right things. So what I'm talking about is making sure that every day that you wake up in, you have a highlight. You have something that's going to give you energy, that's dedicated to you, your self-care, that you're really looking forward to. And that moment for yourself becomes like that charge of the battery that gives you energy to last through the day and not to continuously go in minus. So I would recommend to integrate those moments of what's going to make me happy today and how can I do that, because it's always a good investment in my emotional energy. And I must say that prioritizing, taking breaks is really important, because balance for our body is times of activity and times of recovery. That's sustainable balance. And no one is superwoman and superman for too long. Eventually it runs out. So what I recommend is taking breaks every 1.5 to 2 hours to make sure that you get that recovery moment and you are back on track in your productivity.
I think how people see that is, if I just work for 12 hours and hit this deadline, then tomorrow I can relax and have like a me day. But it doesn't really work like that, does it? Because then the pattern is kind of disrupted. And then the next day, then you work 10 hours. Like you're not sustaining, like you said, sustaining your self recovery and the work. Like you're not dispersing it during the week. You're just kind of batching it in one day and then you're resting for one day. Just like sleep, you can't just have 3 hours sleep one day and then 10 the next. You feel completely different.
Absolutely. Consistency is really important. And as James Clear in Atomic Habits talks about, 1% improvement every day, that little bit is much more important than going in ups and downs, and inconsistent activities. So just make sure every day there's that little 1% drop of something for you. That's what makes a difference.
So I also want to talk about not burnout per se, but people feeling drained every day. It's become the norm to just wake up and be like, I'm not even at 0. I'm at -30 today. And okay, I will do like 1 hour for myself. I'll go for a walk, get sunlight. And it feels like at the end of the day, you hit 0. You're like, I'm at a stable. And then you wake up and you're back at -30. Why do so many people feel like this, that they wake up drained, even if we've had 8 hours sleep?
Yeah. Well, I believe it's because of the lack of highlights and motivation in their daily life. So I would like to go back to that point that I raised. I wake up every morning, and instead of thinking about my to-do list and the tough things that are going to happen to me, I ask myself, what am I looking forward to today? And if I can't find anything, I'm going to create it. I'm going to come up with that thing that my body is telling me I need today, and make sure that I fit it in. Before coming here, I made sure that, I had my latte moment. I felt great, I gave myself that boost of, energy and motivation. And I came here, ready in my energy peak and feeling like, I've taken care of myself. Now I'm ready to share with others. So I do recommend people to start on a positive radio station, note, where they ask themselves, what can I do for myself today, as the first question of the day. That's gonna get them out of bed, get them moving, looking forward to that little moment that's, waiting for them. Enjoy that moment. And then end of the day, look back at their day and say, there was the time that I took for myself, and then the next morning they wake up, they again need to find, that moment, because, well, motivation doesn't last, but brushing teeth or taking a shower doesn't last either. So we recommend that daily. These are the words of Zig Ziglar, I believe. So daily finding your motivation, just like brushing your teeth or taking a shower, is a must-have to keep your energy going.
Because the advice we normally get is you wake up and don't check your phone, like you said, your to-do list, but no one tells us what to do when we're just laying in bed like this. Like, okay, I'm not checking my phone. What do I do? Like watch the sunrise? Like, so I like that you've mentioned that your like highlight of the day is that latte moment that you have with yourself. So the highlight that you can think about during your day doesn't have to be a grand gesture, or I'm going to buy myself a bouquet of flowers, or I have to run a marathon today, or like call X amount of people, like for my business. Like, no, it can be just like, today I want a really tasty matcha. There's a place down the road. I'm going to start my day on a high and spend 3, 4, 5 euros on a nice matcha. It doesn't have to be like you lay in bed, you're not checking your phone or to-do list, and then I'm going to run a marathon.
No, exactly.
No, it can be something small, something that literally sets your heart on fire.
Exactly. We are grateful for very small, relatable things, not for big things, So always take it back to what is meaningful for you right now and go for that, rather than trying to hit the big goals. That's not really true.
Something I want to touch on as well, which was the quick fixes that we mentioned, like the breath work and stuff. What are your thoughts around those quick fixes? Are they true? Do you agree with them? Or are they myths around handling stress?
So whatever is one-off and not consistent is just a nice, fun thing that you can try and is going to work for you. But unless you're going to do it every day for, they say 20 to 60 days that are forming our new habits, our new ways, it's not going to create any long-lasting changes or rewire your brain or change your body. So I recommend to find something that really works for you, whether it's breathing practice, whether this is yoga, whether this is ice bucket or Wim Hof, and make sure that you consistently on a daily basis do it for at least a month or 2 months and see where it takes you. That's when you can really assess whether, this is something for you or not, and see the long lasting changes, and not just try it out for fun and then let it go.
Yeah, there's also like supplements. I've tried ashwagandha, which is the one that is meant to take cortisol out of your body. It's a very popular Indian herb. And I remember taking it for a year. And because it took the stress out, I didn't also have the good stress. So I felt okay, but I felt emotionless. Does that sound strange? So like even supplements that promise low stress or no stress, can be can feel unnatural in the long term.
And I mean, I don't recommend numbing, because our body has to feel and tell us when something is great or not great. Emotions and feelings allow us to make choices and to take decisions. And if you take that out from the, equation, then, you don't have a very important mechanism in your body. So I would see that as a red flag. I find what you do should give you energy, should feel good in your body, should feel like the right thing in terms of your own intuition. Like, I'm waking up and it actually gave me energy. Now, I do want to say that with my clients, when I work on something, after a couple of sessions, and that can probably happen as well after a couple of practices that you are doing in a particular space of well-being, you may have an emotional detox, which is when everything that build up, maybe the blockages, maybe the feelings and emotions that you haven't worked through, or even a trauma that you were not aware of, are going to come up and come out. It's a little bit like there is a fire in the house and you open the door and the oxygen flushes in and there is kind of an explosion. It's not a bad thing. It's the way your body is trying to work through something and explode like a volcano. We often judge it as there is something wrong with me, but actually you're on the edge of a really big improvement when everything is going to come out. And so after that emotional detox, that can be tears and crying, feeling sad, feeling low for a day or two, normally not longer, or getting very sick and just sweating it out, it's a good thing. And normally after it's done, you actually feel renewed and better. That is what we just need to be aware of. But that's why it's so important to work with an expert rather than with a YouTube, influencer, an expert who will take you by the hand and say, listen, this is what's happening. It's okay. Keep going. Or no, I think this is not working for you. You should stop. So, that's, I think, what's important, to find that in person, communication with someone you trust and someone who will take a good care of you when you're going through that, emotional detox and you're not sure if it's a good or bad thing.
And emotions are temporary. I think, how many seconds is it that we feel an emotion?
Yeah. They say, it could be 3 seconds, but you can make it last if it's a good emotion. In fact, that's when it starts rewiring you and your psychology, when you make it last for 20 seconds. But you don't want to keep, very low and negative emotions for too long.
Yeah, and I think that's the issue. And especially just a personal experience with my friends and family, when you kind of dismiss emotions or you don't want to go through it or you hang on to the negative one for so long, I find that you that just becomes like your personality almost. And there's like also brain fogginess. I found that when I was really stressed, I was really forgetful and almost, like you've mentioned, like kind of numb. But when you work through that, you're actually very emotional. Like you're kind of putting this mask. So I was wondering if you had if you've looked into research or if you know stuff about the brain fogginess part, because I feel like you kind of worry. You're like, where's my memory gone? Why can't I remember specific things?
You know, Shauna Shapiro says, she's a famous mindfulness teacher, what you practice grows stronger. So you choose whether you practice distraction and reaction, continuously trying to do too many things at the same time and nothing really gets done, or you decide to, take time for things, really enjoy what you do and focus on that one thing at a time. And then you go in two completely different places, either distraction, having too many things on your mind, eventually creating that feeling of everything and nothing is important, maybe fogginess, or you go in a place, you know what, I'm just going to allow myself to do maximum 2-3 things and be okay with that, because the quality then of my life, of my mind, is in a completely different place. So, for brain fogginess, I just take a step back and ask yourself what is important, what is not, and allow yourself to, just do those good enough things and stop trying to do everything.
It sounds like the dream. I would love to live that life. And I think what comes with that is a bit of guilt. If I start prioritizing myself and I take an hour a day to do something I enjoy, or I work and live in my own pace, I feel guilty. I feel like I'm not honoring others. I'm not seeing my friends as much. I'm not talking to my family as much. I'm not working as hard as I could be, or my colleagues expect me to work. There's like a bit of guilt attached to that.
Yeah, absolutely. And guilt is a very tricky feeling. Guilt says you want to punish yourself for something, and it eventually happens, because what we think we become, and we kind of manifest around us. Now, I am sure you have nothing to be punished for. That's not what you want to happen to yourself, but that's what you have when you start feeling guilty. So in that case, I'd like, whenever I feel guilty for something, for example, being away from my babies when I feel they need me and I really have to be somewhere else, then I take a breath. I recognize that that's how I feel, because it's really important to know what is going on in your mind and in your body. As soon as you are becoming aware of it, it kind of starts already dissolving and taking care of itself. Awareness is already half of the battle won. And then I ask myself, well, what do I really deserve now? And I deserve now maybe, a little bit of a self-compassion, kindness towards myself, and saying that I'm still a good mom. And today I have chosen, to do something else, and that's okay. And forgive myself for doing that. And that immediately converts, guilt into self-care, self-compassion, kindness that I think we all need today, because we are pushing ourselves way too hard and no one tells us to stop. Yeah.
And you've mentioned your babies, your kids very often. I wonder if parenting stress is different, because I'm not a parent, but I have friends that have kids, and I see that they're always kind of alert, always on edge. I wonder if parenting stress is different to like stress I would experience, for example.
Yeah, that's a good question. And when I got pregnant first time, I started to worry. Is my baby going to be okay? How will my, delivery go? And I was worrying a lot, and I thought that when I give birth, the worries poof and are gonna disappear. Well, the worries stayed and actually grew bigger. And what I hear from parents who have, older kids or teenagers say that worries maybe don't grow, but stay and are slightly different, nature. So parents have to recognize, or those who are going to become parents, that we worry, and worries are always going to be there. But as science says, 90% of worries are false alarms. So we want to again acknowledge them, recognize that they are probably a protective mechanism that tells you, hey, this is what can happen, just to let about the dangers, but not to believe in them, and focus rather on self-care, on taking care of our children, that immediately converts that worry energy into something productive, something positive, and makes it a good experience for you and your baby.
And there's a whole new person on this planet that's dependent on you, which sounds really, really scary.
Yeah. I mean, responsibility is huge. You have to think about what should they eat, what should they dress, are they happy, are they healthy? And that completely takes away attention from us parents. And eventually our cup that was full, after vacation or after, having a nice going out with your friends, slowly gets empty. So, the cup of energy that we had basically becomes empty. You cannot pour from an empty cup. And you have to refill it to be able to take care of yourself and to take care of your child, of your baby. Because babies and children are very tricky. They mirror your emotional state, your mental state. So whenever they are crying or cranky, you have to ask yourself, why am I crying, or why am I cranky, and what do I need? Because as soon as I'm getting to a point of more or less, balance and happiness and satisfaction, they mirror it back. So good brings good. When you are on an empty cup, they're going to show it to you, and it's going to get tough.
So kids are mirrors.
They are mirrors, yes.
Ooh. Oh my gosh, I hope my friends don't watch this because they're going to be like, no. They're going to be stubborn. No, that's really interesting because, of course, if they're so young, who else are they going to imitate or understand emotions from? And I'm just thinking back to like my childhood, for example, or like my cousin has 2 kids, and we go shopping together, etc. when I go back to Italy. And like the classic example when you go to the store and then the kid is like, I want chocolate or I want this toy, and you're like, no. And then the kid throws a tantrum because they've never had this emotion where it's like they've been rejected. It's a big emotion. And then they throw themselves on the ground and they're like, somehow this toy has become their universe and they've just seen it for the first time. And mostly what parents do is like they kind of run away, or they're like, shh, like diminishing that emotion instead of, like you said, it's just a few seconds, right? The emotion. And kids don't know how to self-regulate, or they don't even understand what's going through their body at that moment. But for us it's frustrating. We're like, shut up, stop making a scene.
Because it's not okay. We feel uncomfortable, we feel ashamed, and it's a very strong emotion, feeling ashamed. So children cannot regulate their emotions, their brain, until probably 3-4 years old. So every emotion becomes for them just a big explosion that they don't know how to manage. And that toy feels like an extension of them, like their arm or their, leg. And so you're taking away something that's part of them. So you just have to understand what's going on. There's this big explosion. And as parents, we have to learn to do 2 things: holding space for them. So just sitting next to them, giving them as much body contact as they are ready for. And then when the storm is a little bit over, helping them to name an emotion or experience that they are going through. And then later on in life, we are educated on what happened to us and what to do about it. Because if you can name it, you can tame it. So we need to teach our children from early age, this is what's happening to you. Tell me where and how do you feel? And then suddenly they start recognizing it and dealing with it much better next time. So next time in supermarket, sit next to your baby crying. It doesn't matter what others are thinking. They are probably, wanting to help you. No one is likely to be so much annoyed with you. So hold space for them. And then when the storm is over, tell them, looks like you're feeling a little bit angry or frustrated, or tell me, how do you feel? And you will see how this becomes a great experience of emotional education that's going to be so important for them in life to know how to deal with a bigger thing that will happen.
Imagine if everyone knew this, and the kid on the plane behind you who's just kicking your seat and screaming, or that kid in the supermarket, just screaming. If we all imagine if it was like, yeah, you knew how to process this, or someone else would help you, how much more emotionally available and mature children would be, and they would help other kids in the playground as well if they knew how to regulate themselves. I think the world would be such a calmer, better place. And imagine if we could regulate adults as well, because I've been in meetings where people act irrationally, or people huffing and puffing behind you when we're queuing up to go on the plane or check out in the grocery store. It feels like even adults can't self-regulate their emotions.
No. And I think schools are starting to do that.
Oh, really?
Especially in the Netherlands, they really look at that, teaching children to talk about their emotions. But I think it just started. So it's going to be this generation of children that probably will be a little bit better than us, and knowing how to deal with something big.
Something important as well around this parenting kind of situation, and anyone who has a cat or disruptions if they live in a city, etc., is the disturbance of sleep. I think as a person who gets woken up by her cats or outside noises, I'm very light sleeping. I can't imagine being a parent and then having deep sleep finally, and then you just hear, wah! Sorry if I trigger anyone, you just hear a scream or a cry, that would alarm anyone. So how can people navigate stress when it literally disrupts their sleep?
Well, it is true that when you didn't sleep enough, let's say you're missing 2 or 3 hours of sleep, they say two things. You're 30% less effective, so you'll probably get done less, and you have to be aware of that. And it's like you had a beer in the morning. Now, it's not something that would make you brighter, right? Having a beer in the morning. So in that case, first of all, we just have to recognize as parents that we're going to be missing a lot of hours of sleep. They say it's up to 300 to 400 hours of sleep that parents miss in the first years.
Wow.
So just recognize and be compassionate with yourself, and know that today is going to be a good enough day where it's good if everybody, survives and goes to bed safe and sound, than trying to, achieve your to-do list and be this amazing Insta mom, that you see around yourself. So good enough on a day with less sleep is probably the best formula.
That's so reassuring. That's so nice. And hey, kids fall asleep during the day as well. Grab a nap whenever you can. Just recharge your batteries.
Yeah, absolutely. And majority of us, when children sleep during the day, choose to, take care of the house, or maybe have a moment of cup of tea, or, catch up on a few emails. That's the truth of this, that we often choose something else. But I do think it's important to, have a little nap if you woke up exhausted in the morning.
You heard it here first. Have that little nap. It's going to make you feel better.
Because then you arrive to the weekend and your sleep bank account is in minus. And then you're going to catch up on that sometime during the weekend, but also there is no time on the weekend. So, we just have to be aware that every time we don't sleep enough, it affects our sleep bank account, and that eventually affects our body starting to break down. And we don't want that to happen.
Yeah, we don't want to be raisins. We want to be juicy grapes.
Yeah, I like that. It stuck to you. Yeah.
Something I've noticed, there's a pattern. There's always a pattern. And I'm always analyzing as we speak with this podcast. you talk a lot, whether it's parenting or yourself or work, it's about taking things away instead of adding things to your routine, like these hacks, like these breath work, etc., adding things. You're talking a lot about subtracting, removing things and really simplifying your life and your routine.
Yeah. I think I'm just trying to remove the pressure that, we all build in our mind, feeling like we need to do things. And I say, you don't need to do things, quality over quantity. Many of us as parents, feel guilty for not spending time with our loved ones, with our children, with our friends. But if you ask them, or what psychology says, that, it's all about quality, and quality means two things. Whenever you are with your children, let's say you have 15 minutes before going to work or going, to run your errands, you can spend 15 minutes of focusing fully on them. So no phone, no TV, no trying to do two things at the same time, wash plates and, play with them. Do one thing. So fully focus on them and do what they want. So if your child just wants to, play a puzzle or read book together, that's what you're going to do. And those 15 minutes of full attention on them and doing what they want is going to create a memory of we've been together, quality time, versus we've been hours together, but mommy was busy on laptop or doing things in the background. So let's choose quality over quantity and remove that guilt and desire to spend, autopilot hours that really don't matter so much.
That can apply as well with, your friendships or family. The memories that come to mind for me, and I'm sure other people as well, is when I've had those deep conversations, like with my mom, with my friends. Like, it's really obvious if I'm just like this, like it's a shield. It feels like you're not important. So I can imagine as a kid, if my parent is like on their iPad or watching TV, I'm kind of like, hello, like, what about me? Like, am I not important? But also if you're on a date, if you're with your friends, if you're talking to your grandma, like just being distracted or doing other things, it just, you're not having quality time, and that's not what memories are built on.
No. It's, we spread ourselves too thin. We give 20% of attention, to the worry we have. We kind of think in the background, what about this? What about that? Then we give maybe 30% to cooking or doing some housework. And we give maybe the rest, like 60, 70% to a child, or what's left. And then no one gets quality from you. So why to bother? Just give all 100% to, that what you are doing or that person that you're with. It's going to feel much better and they're going to be happier. So.
Yeah, I agree with you. I remember, just to kind of have a full 360 circle moment with my, there's like a daily routine list that I check off with the cold exposure and stuff like that and the exercise. I did everything right and I slept really bad. And I remember I thought, why? I'm doing everything right. Like, why am I not sleeping? Why am I stressed? Why am I thinking in the night? This is so frustrating. So I actually decided to dial back. I'm pretty sure we had a conversation on video call before this happened, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna strip things back and I'm just gonna go see a friend and like tell her, not like offload, but like ask her for advice about my issues. And we spent hours, and then she was giving me advice, and then she said, I have these issues, and it was like just being friends again and like minimal phone time. And I slept like a baby, Iryna. And I was like, oh, life is so simple. Instead of overcomplicating it by having a freezing cold shower first thing and doing loads of exercise, all I needed was just to feel listened and understood for a few hours with a friend. That's all I needed. It's so simple.
There you go. You needed that social energy.
Exactly.
Connection, conversation, oxytocin that comes with it, and that was important, and that worked like magic, right?
Yeah.
So,
Even though I wasn't feeling extremely social because I was tired,
okay.
I had like 4 hours sleep. I was like, the last thing I want to do is go to a busy place
Right.
and talk to my friend and use my brain juice.
Right.
But it worked so much.
Yeah.
Like it really, really helped. So maybe
Yeah.
that thing you're avoiding,
Yeah.
like socializing or seeing your friends or family,
Exactly.
is the thing you need.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, they are our support network. They are the ones that sometimes would give us, you know, that feeling, you're okay, you know, everything is fine, you know, that feeling of being your best friend and having your back no matter what, and reminding us what we need to do towards ourselves, you know. But unfortunately, we only, you know, hear it from them. We don't do it for ourselves. So, what I mean is that, you know, you are not gonna tell yourself, oh, I'm going to be nice and kind to myself. I'm a good person no matter what someone else has to do or tell that to you. And this is a bit double standards, you know. We can do the same towards ourselves that we do to others. And unfortunately, we don't. So that's a little bit the tricky part.
Yeah. If you just treat yourself like you would with your best friend, like try and be kind to yourself and understanding and not being so harsh. We're so, our self critics are, very harsh. Like I'm just listening to mine right now.
Yeah.
It can be really tough just living with that all the time. So just taking a step back and just treating yourself how you would your best friend or your sibling or your mom is just simple advice, but very, very helpful.
Yeah, absolutely.
Iryna, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders just speaking to you and just you acknowledging that how we feel is okay and everything we're going through is normal, and that yes, this year feels really stressful because it is. We're stretching ourselves so thin. And just about the parenting, I mean, it reassures me for the future that shit's gonna get wild, but it's okay. It is what it is. It's what you signed up for. So I just wanted to say thank you so much for your wisdom, for all your advice. It's been a pleasure. It's been very enlightening, and it was golden advice actually. It was beautiful.
Thank you. And you know, I always say that life is about having good, bad, and ugly emotions. And maybe that's the beauty of it, to experience life in that, you know, raw emotional way and have experiences of everything. And so if we can see every experience as something beautiful and something that we'll look back on and say, I'm so happy I've kind of done it all, then I think we're gonna live a happier, simpler life where, you know, everything just becomes an experience that you add into your, you know, book of memories.
Yes, and what a book of memories that is. Unfortunately, we forgot the cards. We didn't forget the iPad in the new studio, but we forgot our conversation cards. I'm really sorry, Iryna, and I can't think of a juicy question to ask you, but for next time. And where can I find you if I'm looking for coaching or a yoga retreat from yourself?
Absolutely. On LinkedIn, that is my favorite space to be. So later on, we're going to share the links to my LinkedIn page, and then people can reach out. I am here to help, to support, to have a good conversation like that.
Perfect. Thank you so much again for coming by, and let's live a realistically happy life and stress-free life.
Yes.